On a chilly winter afternoon, a millionaire's life was about to change forever. As he sat in his luxury car, distracted by his phone, he never expected that a moment of carelessness would lead to a life-altering encounter. When a little beggar girl suddenly darted into the street to save him from causing an accident, he had no idea that her selfless act would lead him down a path of unexpected transformation. But what she asked for in return, a request that seemed so simple, would shake him to his core. This is the story of how a chance encounter with a young girl who had nothing changed everything for a man who had it all. Get ready for a story of redemption, kindness, and the power of human connection. On a cold winter afternoon, as the sun was beginning to dip behind the tall skyscrapers, a man in an expensive suit sat inside his sleek black sports car, waiting for the light to turn green. His name was Victor Blackwood, a successful millionaire who had spent years building a multi-billion-dollar empire. He had everything anyone could want: wealth, luxury, and power. But in that moment, something unexpected happened that would change his life forever. Victor was deep in thought, checking his phone, reviewing his business emails, when he heard a loud honk from behind. He turned around, irritated, and noticed a little girl standing on the corner of the busy intersection. She was holding a small cardboard sign that read, "Please help, starving and cold." Her clothes were ragged, her face dirty, and her eyes filled with the kind of sadness he had only seen in the faces of those living in the deepest corners of poverty. Her appearance was the complete opposite of everything Victor had ever known. He looked away, dismissing her from his mind, and focused on the light ahead. Suddenly, a loud screeching noise broke through the silence. His car jerked forward as his foot instinctively slammed on the brake. Time seemed to freeze for a moment. The streetlight turned red, and just as Victor was about to regain control of the vehicle, something amazing happened. The little beggar girl, without a moment's hesitation, darted toward the street. Victor's heart pounded in his chest as he saw her. She was running toward the traffic, seemingly oblivious to the speeding car coming in her direction. In that instant, he knew something terrible was about to happen. But before he could act, something remarkable occurred. The little girl leaped forward and grabbed the back of his car, using all her strength to pull herself onto the bumper. In an almost superhuman feat of agility, she swung her body forward just in time to push a woman who had been crossing the street out of harm's way. The car, now swerving to avoid hitting the child, narrowly missed her, but in doing so, it struck the streetlight with a force that shattered the pole. Victor's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. The little beggar girl had saved a life, no, 2 lives. His and the woman's. The moment the car came to a screeching halt, he rushed out of his vehicle to check on the girl. His heart was racing, and his mind struggled to process the scene in front of him. The little girl was breathing heavily, and her eyes were filled with shock. She seemed dazed but unharmed. He knelt beside her, carefully lifting her face toward his. She looked at him as if she had done nothing extraordinary. Her simple words left him stunned. "I had to help. It was the right thing to do," she said, her voice soft and steady despite the chaos around them. Victor's mind raced. He was not used to being humbled. He was the one who made things happen, who controlled the world around him. But here was this young girl, with nothing to her name, risking her life to save his. It struck him to his core. The crowd had gathered by then, and the woman she had saved was being escorted to a nearby curb by some bystanders. Victor, still kneeling on the pavement, was overcome with a mix of emotions. He helped the little girl to her feet and asked, "Are you okay? What's your name?" She wiped a bit of dirt from her cheek, her eyes narrowing as she glanced up at him. "My name is Emily," she said, her voice almost too quiet to hear. Victor stood up and helped her toward the sidewalk, away from the wreckage of the streetlight. He found a nearby bench and sat her down. He was shaken, but still, the man inside him took control. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a stack of bills. "Here," "Take this," he said, holding the money out to her. "This should help." Emily's small hands shook as she looked at the money. She didn't take it. Instead, she looked up at Victor and said something that would change him forever. "I don't want your money," she said simply. "I just wanted to do the right thing. What's the point of having money if you don't help others?" She stared directly at him, her eyes piercing his soul in a way he had never experienced. Victor felt his heart stop for a moment. He had spent his entire life chasing wealth, power, and success. Yet here was this young girl who had nothing, offering him something far more valuable than money, wisdom, and compassion. His mind couldn't quite grasp the magnitude of the situation, but he felt something shift inside him. "I don't know why I did it," Emily continued, her voice softening as she spoke, "but I knew you needed help. You were about to hit someone, and I couldn't let that happen." Victor was silent for a moment. He had everything anyone could ever want, yet in that instant, he realized that he was lacking something much more important: purpose. He looked at the girl who had saved his life without a second thought, and knew that his life was about to change forever. Emily's words lingered in his mind as he gazed out at the busy street. "What will you do now?" he asked her quietly. She shrugged. "I'll keep doing what I do. Help people. Live day by day. I have to." Victor nodded. He couldn't understand how someone with so little could give so much. He realized then that he had spent his life building walls around himself, hiding from the truth that people like Emily had known all along, that love, kindness, and compassion were the true currency of life. Suddenly, Victor felt a strange urge to do something he had never done before. He reached into his wallet, pulled out his business card, and handed it to Emily. "This is my card," he said. "If you ever need anything at all, don't hesitate to call me." Emily looked down at the card for a moment, then back up at him. She seemed to consider it for a second, but then she shook her head. "I don't need anything from you," she said gently, handing the card back. "I just wanted to help you." With that, she stood up and began to walk away, disappearing into the crowd before Victor could say anything more. For a long time after, Victor sat there, staring at the spot where she had been. The sound of the city rushed around him, but it felt as though everything had come to a halt. The life he had known, the world he had created, suddenly seemed so insignificant. He had spent his life building an empire, but now he realized that all of that meant nothing, without people who truly cared, without love, without kindness. In the weeks that followed, Victor couldn't stop thinking about Emily. Her words echoed in his mind. He found himself questioning his life, his choices, and the things that truly mattered. No longer was he obsessed with money or status. Instead, he began to focus on the one thing that had been missing from his life for so long: human connection. Victor reached out to various charitable organizations, funding projects that help children like Emily, providing education, healthcare, and safe spaces for kids living on the streets. He started volunteering his time, not for recognition, but because he realized that making a difference in someone else's life was the most valuable thing he could do. Then one day, out of the blue, Victor received a letter. It was from Emily. She thanked him for his kindness and told him that because of his support, she was able to attend school and dream of a better future. She signed the letter simply, "Thank you for believing in me, for giving me the chance to help others." Victor sat back in his chair, staring at the letter, his heart swelling with pride. The little girl who had saved his life had changed him in ways he could never have imagined. She had opened his eyes to the things that truly mattered in life, and in return, he was determined to pay it forward. As for Emily, she continued to live her life helping others, knowing that no matter how small, a simple act of kindness could change the world. And for Victor, he knew that his life would never be the same again. It was a reminder that sometimes it's the people with the least who teach us the most about life, love, and what it means to truly be human